Hello everybody, this is Igor Pechkovskyi, Woodinville, Bellevue Comments, and I have here Jim Murphy with Movement Mortgage.
Thank you, Igor. Appreciate having you on board.
Awesome. As you guys been following this channel, we always try to bring some good data, good thoughts on the market, and I'll be working on a market video later for you today for the exact numbers of what we have in Seattle. But I really enjoy Jim's insight, and he looks kind of at a data or more national level. And last week he shared with our team here some really cool slides, and I'm like, we gotta make a video on that. The slides are good. I understood like a half of it, so we're bringing it to you, and we'll just
and we're gonna make it simple.
And we're gonna make it simple,
really simple.
And you please put a comment, subscribe, and let's see if you understand any of this. So 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Alrighty, so the first one, shelter costs are lagging. This one looks complicated. I'm not gonna try explaining it. Jim, what do we have here?
This is basically showing two lines. So the purple line is really shelter costs, and shelter costs went up drastically in 2021 into 2022 when you had landlords that basically had a full year and a half that could not raise rent prices. And we saw home prices increase along those same timelines. And what that graph is showing is CPI and shelter costs should be relatively similar. And that's what you kind of see in 19 going into 20. What you see is that big jagged increase on the shelter costs and rent, that purple line, that basically shows a massive increase in rent. Rents are up like 10 to 15% during that time period, but that's not normal. Rents are usually about 3% year over year. So what that graph is showing is really showing that they're going to cross over. Rents are coming down. They're really back to traditional levels on that 3% mark. And why that's important is because once shelter comes back to normal, and it goes on a 12-month average. So when it goes on a 12-month average, it takes a really long time to work itself through the market. So we've seen really high inflation over the last 12 months, but 40% of inflation is shelter costs. And that is going to come back to normal starting in May. When that happens in May, we're going to see a decline in inflation. And that's the same time period that the Fed has been increasing their Fed funds rate. So at the exact same time, on a 9-month Fed increase and a 12-month average of rent prices going up and then down, you're gonna see a natural 2% drop in inflation. And that's going to really, it's gonna do two things. One, it's gonna show what the Fed is gonna say that they did their job. And following that, you will see a decrease in interest rate because that is what interest rates do. They follow inflation. That's why they're so much higher over the last 12 months. So moving forward, May through the end of the year, we should really see a decrease in mortgage rates purely because inflation is going to come down. It might be as low as like 3.5 to 3.6% towards the end of 2023 when it was at like 9.5 towards the end of 2022. So we're really waiting for those shelter costs to come back down in line. And when they do, we're going to see lower inflation.
Love it. I don't have to say a word. Lower inflation, lower interest rate, higher real estate price. So let's go buy some houses. All right, let's go next. All right, guys, jokes aside, next thing we have inventory. As we always talk about, inventory is being a crucial thing. I always tell you on the Washington State, on Seattle level, what makes this place beautiful makes it hard to build, right? We are surrounded by lakes, we have mountains around us, there is no land to build, there is no inventory. It isn't. It takes 1 year to get a building permit to build one house. It takes another year, so 2 years total to build one residential unit. That's why these houses are huge for builders to make money. We have zero inventory. And then Jim comes and shows me this slide that's also on the national level, there is very little inventory.
Yeah, incredibly low. So we're actually looking at the lowest inventory levels maybe in history. And what this graph shows is the comparison between 2006, 7, 8, 9 versus today. And this is a question we get all the time. They say, okay, where's the bubble? Where's it gonna happen? And it's so hard to see anything like that in our current market trends because right now we see just under 1 million houses across the entire country that are for sale right now. In 2007, there was almost 4 million houses for sale. And that is an incredibly different number. Right now you're seeing, and it's also part two is really the demographics. So in the 70s and the 60s and 70s, there were not nearly as many births as there were in the 80s. Right now, the current home buyer is between about 30 and 40 as a first-time buyer. That 80s population is so much larger than it was in the 60s and 70s that we're seeing an influx in numbers of buyers versus inventory that's almost 4 to 1 what it was in 07, 08. So we really are not afraid of seeing housing prices go down because we have so many people that want to buy.
Any questions? All right, let's go next. All right, so next thing, low inventory brings us to a good low listing count, right? So Jim, what can you tell us about this next slide?
Yeah, I mean, the listing count is actually kind of incredible. So not only is it under 1 million as full listings, but that doesn't even count pendings and homes that are under contract for builders. And realistically, if you look at that number, it's probably just under 600,000 actual units for sale in the U.S. right now. If you add in the pendings and contracts on builds, so I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, we're actually at about a 17,000 unit, like, not enough houses in the city of Seattle right now, in King County specifically. So we need units as soon as possible. And again, if you have that many people out there looking for houses, it's really hard to feel like you're going to see a decrease in real estate price.
I only could follow up on this to the point of Jim just made. I get some comments on YouTube sometimes that like, Igor, like you guys always are overly optimistic. It has nothing to do with optimism, just has to do with math. When a lot of people of you out there are saying that many people cannot afford real estate here, I agree with you. I'm with you 100%, but you forget how many people can actually afford real estate around here. And there are many of them. And with the listing count the way it is, and the inventory being as low as the way it is, that's why our prices, they went down a bit and they're up right now and continue to climb up.
Yeah, well, one interesting comment towards that too is, the average age of a first-time home buyer used to be 33. It has now gone up to about 36 in this higher interest rate environment. So that kind of goes along with that point. If people can't afford it, it might take a little bit longer to maybe be further along in your career, maybe have a dual income to be able to afford that, but it does not mean that this area can't support it.
So the next slide that you guys see is something that really probably more explains the psychology of the market overall. I have quite a few thoughts here, but we have the guest talk today, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. I mean, it's a U-shape, right? So when the market's on the way down and sellers need to sell, they're far less confident, and that gives opportunity to buyers to potentially get seller credits or do a temporary buy down or any sort of unique mortgage product that you use in a market where it's a little bit more buyer confidence. And the hardest thing you can ever do is predict the bottom, right? So a lot of people are calling for the bottom right now. And once it hits bottom and starts going back up price-wise, which I personally feel like we're right on the edge of, if not already hit, then you start getting seller confidence. And when you get seller confidence, you get multiple buyers, you get multiple offers, you get higher prices, maybe you're escalating 5, 10, 12, who knows what percentage. And really, if you feel like you're on the way down and you're not a real estate day trader, then there's no reason not to buy on the way down, because 3-4 years later, you're going to see appreciation and catch right back up. So that's the hardest part with trying to catch the bottom of it. You might miss it, you might catch an upswing, and now you're in a multiple offer scenario, which is something you could have avoided 3, 4, 5 months before.
Guys, let's face it, you want to be in multiple offers, you just want to pay $1 more than the last guy, so that makes you feel good at night when you go to sleep. I've been through this, I've seen it for years. It's impossible to time the market. You're gonna time it only by mistakes. I had sellers that we brought off-market offers last year that just thought that their houses would keep going up and it will not stop ever. So the ones that sold, they won lottery, and not everybody could win the lottery. And the ones that did not sell, probably thinking that they should have sold a year ago, but they were greedy. Same goes to buyers. In the fall, when I was saying, let's get out there, let's do offers where you had an opportunity to put an offer 100K, 130K below, 150K below, like, that's hard to make that decision because nobody wants to go out and buy. It's scary, it's uncomfortable, it's unusual. But now, the last 3 properties that I put an offer on, one in Bellevue, one in Renton, another one in Kirkland, all 3 had at least 10 offers on these homes, and that's what we see.
It's fear, right? It's fear of making a decision before maybe you should, but when you start getting into, okay, now it feels okay, you probably missed that bottom, right? You kind of have to take the data that you have to make an educated decision on when to put your money in a market if you have confidence in that market, and that's hard. I mean, people sit there and say, oh my God, when should I go? And a lot of times when they finally make that decision, it might be too late. But as Igor said, we're seeing the same things. We're seeing multiple offers with our clients on just about everything right now. It's been it's been a quick shift, and I don't think we're going to see that change here this summer.
So my rule of thumb, I always tell you the same thing, like don't try to time it. Just whenever you're ready, when you feel like you can afford it and you like the property, just go out and do it. House, and I get a lot of heat for this, is not an investment. You gotta live there, you gotta enjoy like raising the family or cats or whatever you got, right? Like grilling, barbecue, or vegetables. It's your lifestyle. So don't try to time it. Just if you can afford it, get out there, do it. Don't overthink it. Let's go to the next.
Well, and there's two things, right? If you are a real estate investor, that's different. You're putting numbers together. You're seeing if your down payment calculates out with whatever the rent might look like. Maybe you get an increase in rent year over year. Maybe your numbers make sense then. But if you're buying as a primary, that's totally different. You're getting tax benefits as being a homeowner. You're enjoying the lifestyle, being in the community that you're in. That's a totally different thing. So I think there are two different ways to look at that. But you're absolutely right. You can't just wait and say the numbers are perfect, because when you do that, you're probably competing against 10, 15 people.
Yeah. I wish my wife said more often that I'm absolutely right, but let's go into the next slide. All right, guys, 2 more slides at you. I know it's a lot, but this one is good. I have no clue about this. I have Jim tell you about it more, but it's a good slide. Jim, what do we got here?
Yeah, so you're going back to the bottom, right? The bottom of the housing market, the last one we saw was May of 2012. And when you look at May of 2012, the preceding months, 12, 15-ish months, the nationwide home appreciation was about 8%. So if we have hit a bottom in the Seattle market, then I don't think it's crazy to think you're going to see an 8 to 10, maybe even 12% appreciation between now and the end of 2024. And that's really what we reflected in May of 2012. And with a limited inventory, and that's really what that slide is showing too, there's over 2 million houses available in May of 2012, and today there's probably about 600,000 to 700,000. And that is insane to me to think that we won't see more appreciation because of those inventory numbers.
I only could add to it, like if you would just remove 2022, which in our market update, we look at the median price, right? And you have like 21, then you have 22, and then you have like 23. But if you just take off the 2022, we're moving in a pretty good line.
But even if you take off, let's talk about median home price for a second, that is not appreciation. That's the average home price sold.
Sure. Yep.
So if you look at year over year right now, in Case-Shiller's index, it's still about 2%.
Well, let's talk about it, right? Because I know it's next,
crazy.
Right? It's the next slide, but this is it.
So this last slide is really showing like what the history of housing has done over an 81-year time period. And 74 of those years, you saw a positive return year over year. So even if you look at the housing crisis of 2007 through 2012 in May, like we just talked about, and you held that house for a 10-year period, you still made money. So again, if you're not a real estate day trader and you invest in real estate, especially the primary, we really have never seen a negative return in housing. And again, there's an asterisk there. If you bought in 2008 and sold in 2010, yes, you absolutely lost money. But if you kept your home over a longer time period, you've never lost money in this real estate market.
So let me ask you this, because this is the one that I'm a little, so it's a Case-Shiller. I look at 2022, it still says 6%.
Yeah.
So if I go to the median price in Bellevue dropped over the last year, because it went up so high, it dropped 23% in Bellevue. Yeah. So how could it still be 6% positive for the 2022?
Two answers. One, it is a nationwide average. So certain markets did see a drop in price, but Bellevue probably saw a 30+% increase in the first 4 or 5 months of the year. So if you saw a 30+% increase in the first 5 months and a 23% drop, there's still appreciation there. So I also don't think you're going to see a decline in Bellevue in 2023. I don't think you're going to see a decline anywhere in Seattle in 2023. So those numbers are always easy to kind of manipulate, but if you look on averages, in the last 81 years, it's really hard to ignore the real estate gains.
So just to follow up on Jim's final, thought that he just shared, if we're correct, which most likely we are, like if or when we start taking grip on this inflation and rates are slowly moving down, like they were 6.5 just for some weeks, they're now closer to 6. Jumbo is what, under 6, right?
Under 6 currently, but you forget we're at 8 in September of 22.
Yeah.
We're already down drastically since the highs of inflation. So even that point specifically, if you're looking at the highs of inflation in September of 2022, and inflation is down probably about 2.5%, rates are down about 1.5% too. So even those peaks that we saw in the end of 22, we're already seeing some of those gains here in 2023.
Yeah. With that being said, our market is moving to more of our normal Seattle Bellevue market. Like rates should have never been 3%. Like if they will be 5.5%, I'd be extremely happy. With the limited inventory and listing inventory that we have available to us, like we're not saying that you'll see a 400,000, over asking. We shouldn't have seen this, but we do see 5, 6, 7 offers on properties already today.
Let's just look at historical averages, right? So if you look at historical averages in King County, if you take the last 60 years, it's about 5.7% year-over-year return in King County. 5.7 across the board. And that's not even specific places like we talked about, Bellevue, Kirkland, some of these neighborhoods that went absolutely ballistic in 2020 and 2021. So, let's just look averages on it, right? You're looking at, it seems like 6% seems to be the place that everything comes back to, right? You talk to a financial advisor, they say we probably get you 6% year over year on average. Same thing with housing, it's close to 6. Interest rates were well above 6 for a little while. They're kind of battling 6, maybe they're below that. And historically, the average interest rate is right around that same number. So if we just look at 6s and you're getting rates under 6, you're probably in a decent spot. If you're getting appreciation over 6, you're in a great spot. I think 6 is kind of the mental number you have to think about right now going forward as averages.
Friends, you already know I'm a real deal. Now you know that Jim is a real deal. And talking to him is always pleasure. When I get his slides, make me think like this is good insight, good, really huge knowledge and wisdom. I really appreciate the market analysis. Not everybody like looking that way to get that sometimes global, international, thought into those things. So we appreciate you being with us.
Yeah,
guys,
sure.
getting approved, getting any mortgage financing advice. We're gonna put your logo somewhere here so you find it in the video description.
Awesome. And I do weekly updates and I post them on YouTube as well at Jim Murphy Mortgage. So if you want to check weekly on what we're seeing and what the markets look like, follow me there. I'm on Facebook page as well.
Yeah, and if you're still convinced that everything is will go to hell, just put that in the comment and subscribe. And if you still, did not like this video, just put a like button and please support our channel. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Igor.